Nothing Jimmy McGill did in Better Call Saul was technically as bad as the worst things Walter White did in Breaking Bad, but Jimmy's Cruelest scheme sure felt a lot worse than any of Walt's misdeeds. Although Bryan Cranston's performance kept viewers in did to Walt, he committed some truly horrible acts throughout the series. He poisoned a child, he turned Jesse over to a life of slavery, and he had 10 men murdered across 3 prisons in the space of 2 minutes. But nothing that Walt did in Breaking Bad was quite as reprehensible as the worst thing Jimmy did in Better Call Saul. By the order of the law, Walt's monstrous deeds are technically considered worse. But Jimmy's most unscrupulous action made the audience feel truly disgusted in a way they never did when Walt was killing his rivals or manipulating situations in his favor. Walt never made the audience feel the way they did when Jimmy threw Irene Landry under the bus at Sandpiper. Jimmy turning Irene's friends against her in Better Call Saul was way too cruel. It wasn't as bad as Walt poisoning a child, but it felt meaner. Jimmy putting shoes on Irene in Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul set up the Sandpiper Crossing class action lawsuit way back in its first season, but as with most legal action, it didn't see much movement for a couple of years. In Season 3, Episode 9, Fall, Jimmy visited Irene, one of Better Call Saul's most innocent characters, to follow up on the case. Fooled by his friendly facade, Irene allowed Jimmy to take a look at the settlement offer proposed by Erin Brill. This gave Jimmy an idea. If he could convince Irene to take the settlement, he and Kim would get a hefty payday. In Season 3, Episode 10, Lantern, Jimmy set about convincing Irene to take the settlement. An unfortunate side effect of this ploy was that it turned Irene's friends against her. When he saw this poor elderly lady iced out by her friends, Jimmy realized he'd gone too far and orchestrated another ploy that made him the bad guy. Turning an old woman's friends against her might not be as evil as some of the things Walt did, but seeing Irene sad and alone hurt more than seeing a couple of drug dealers get run over by a Pontiac Aztek. Jimmy's Irene scheme proved there was nothing he wasn't willing to do. At least he regretted it, and somewhat rectified it. Even though Jimmy regretted turning Irene's friends against her and somewhat rectified it by turning them against him instead, this proved that there was no line he wouldn't cross. This callous approach to scheming would eventually lead to the untimely death of Howard Hamlin in the final season of Better Call Saul. That shocking twist created a fork in the road for Jimmy and Kim. It led Kim to give up her duplicitous ways and repent by going straight, but it led Jimmy even further down the rabbit hole of amorality.